Good morning, Safe Harbor ladies. I am very happy to see new faces at Safe Harbor, and I thought we should probably have a beginner class just to go over some of the basics about yoga, just in case you have no familiarity. And I thought since this is a beginning yoga class, we'd have a beginning of the spiritual life sort of quote for today. And so I found this quote from Jesus to Sister Mary of the Holy Trinity. "This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And that is for now and for eternity. Everything else must be borne with meekness and patience. They are only fleeting shadows which pass around you, but I remain. I love you and I take care of you." I love those quotes of Jesus to Sister Mary of the Holy Trinity. So you'll find I use them a lot in my yoga classes. So one of the things we'll be needing for today is a block. There are thick foam blocks like this, and there are thin foam blocks, which are a little about half the thickness of this. Try and get a thick one if you can. And one of the things that I have noticed about beginners to yoga is they often come wearing socks. So we do yoga on a sticky mat, and this mat will help our hands and feet grip into it so that we don't slide accidentally into splits. But if we're wearing socks, this sticky mat will be defeated in its purpose. So you'll want to remove your socks, and later you may want your socks balled up for a particular pose. So if you'd like, roll your socks up into little bundles like this and set them off to the side, because you may be wanting them as another yoga prop. So here we go. Usually in yoga we begin with breathing, and breathing practices in yoga are called pranayama. Sounds so fancy, but we're going to do some pranayama laying on our back in what's called constructive rest position. So the feet are as wide as the mat, the knees come together, and the arms are out to the side. I like to shrug my shoulders under a little bit so my shoulder blades are flat on the floor. So in this way, our spine has its natural curves, but we're not having to sit up and use our muscles to hold us in that position. So we're just going to bring the hands onto the belly and start breathing through the nose and feeling the belly inflate and then deflate, and feel that rising and falling of the belly under the hands. So as you exhale, feel like the belly button pulling down towards the spine, and you'll notice that naturally lengthens the exhale. Now we have a special kind of breathing that we do throughout our yoga practice. It's called Ujjayi breath, and it means triumphant breath. It's the triumph of the breath over the mind, and it's a very simple breath. So you inhale through the nose, and when you exhale through the nose, it's the same feeling as you would have if you were going and fogging up a mirror. So when you do that, it constricts the back of the throat a little bit. And so we close the lips and we're exhaling through the nose, but that slight constriction makes the exhale audible. And because we can hear our exhale, we have something to focus the mind on. So you can hear the inhale, and hear the exhale. That's Ujjayi breath. And we keep it throughout our yoga practice unless we're doing some other
pranayama, but that is our default pranayama practice throughout our yoga. So we're just going to do that ujjayi breath with the hands on the belly, feeling it rise and fall. Just bringing attention to the breath begins to steady it. Many times when people have had past traumas, they'll find they're holding their breath a lot. Or that they may even be a backwards breather, where instead of having the belly lift and expand on the inhale, they're tightening their stomach muscles and lifting the chest. And that can make you feel very anxious in the body. So just learning how to breathe, filling the belly on an inhale, exhaling, letting it drop, can really do a lot to change your mood and your level of anxiety. So a couple more rounds of just focusing on belly breathing. Feeling the effects in the mind and the body as we start to slow down. And then we're going to change this into a 3-part breath. So the first part is that the breath fills the belly. Then we're going to take this part of the hand between the index fingers and the thumbs and place them around the lower ribs. Okay? And so now when we inhale, feel the ribs expand. So you should feel them going out against your fingers. Try to keep that breath through the nose. A triumphant breath. And we're not really trying to make the breath something that it's not. You might find that if you're forcing the breath too much, you yawn a lot in our pranayama. So try and make the breath as full as it naturally would be. Not going for the longest, deepest breath ever. Just giving our body what it needs. One more round, feeling the inhale expand the ribs, and then an exhale that contract back together. Now we're going to bring the tips of the fingers to the top of the chest. We have this bone that goes across the chest, our collarbone. And bring your fingers just under the collarbone so we can see if we can feel the collarbone lift and lower. It's a subtle movement. But on an inhale, see if the collarbone rises any. Little bit. That lifting and lowering action. The wave-like nature of the breath. It's like a wave coming into the shore. And that last little bit of the wave is so thin. But it's that little edge of the wave that we're feeling up in the collarbone. Now we're going to put those 3 parts together. You can bring the arms to the side or rest them on the belly, whichever feels more comfortable to you. And so we'll inhale and feel the inhale inflate the belly first. Then inflate the ribs. Then lift the collarbones. And on the exhale, we'll feel the collarbones drop down, ribs coming in, belly button pulling down towards the spine. And again, so inhale, inflate the belly. It's lifting and rising, and then the ribs expand out. And collarbones delicately lift. And then exhale, collarbones lower, ribs drawing in, navel to spine. Do a few more rounds of that 3-part breath, feeling how soothing that is. Hearing that sound of the Ujjayi breath. And that wave-like motion of the breath moving through the body. It can feel very much like being on the beach. Same kind of relaxation. And one more. I'm enjoying this so much. I hope you are too. That was lovely. So often in yoga, when we get up from being supine, as in on the back, we roll over to the side, and that's so we don't strain the low back by just rolling up. So if you had a strong back, you could do that, and in some yoga classes we will. But most of the time what we'll do is we'll roll to the right side and use the arms to press up, because we don't want to injure ourselves in yoga. There are a lot of points of alignment in yoga classes. You'll hear the teacher telling you, pay attention to this and do that. And a lot of that perfection is around increasing our awareness. So yoga is all about bringing us back to our natural selves. And we've been knocked way out of alignment, and we've really lost touch with who we are on a physical level, emotional level, spiritual level. And yoga is an attempt to bring that all back to the way God made us. So as I'm saying all these points of alignment, I don't want you to think that yoga is just perfectionistic and you're not going to be able to do it. It's to bring your attention back into the present moment and to get our bodies back to the way they were designed to work. So that we can do yoga safely also. So we're going to do a foundational pose. It's called Tadasana, and it means mountain pose, and it's standing. Okay, so we're going to need our block now, and we're going to begin with our feet hip width apart. Now, we're used to calling this our hips, like our outer edges of our body we think of that as hips. But that is not our hip. If you've ever heard of someone getting a hip replacement, they don't mean up here. They mean where this femur bone connects up into the pelvis. That is our hip joint, okay? So it's about here, midway in the thighs. And if you draw this imaginary line down the body, that's where your heels should be, hip width apart, okay? And we're gonna look at the outer edges of our feet. I happen to be blessed with very straight outer edges of the feet, so it's easy for me to see. Are my outer edges of the feet parallel? So it looked like a little box. And if these outer edges of the feet are parallel, what happens is it looks like the toes are coming in a little bit. But that toes coming in a little bit starts to spiral up the leg, and we get an inner spiral of the thighs, which is really good for the low back.
So we're just going to begin with our foundation, which is our feet. We're going to lift up all our toes. And you'll notice as soon as you lift up the toes, what happens in the kneecaps? The kneecaps like draw up and you feel them feeling more sturdy. You also feel the four corners of your feet. So the four corners are pinky toe ball mound, big toe ball mound, outer edge of the heel, inner edge of the heel. You'll feel those all rooting down evenly. A lot of times we rotate in or out through our ankles, and when we lift the toes, this is the way feet should feel if they were flat on the floor. So we're going to lift up the toes, and then we're going to lower them back down and spread them. So we're going to feel the pinkies lower first, and then start lowering the next toes, and finally the big toes. And that should give you a nice broad base with the toes. If you look down, you look like you're in a Birkenstock or you're walking on the beach the way the toes are spreading, like we've never worn a high heel in our lives. But we're going to kind of keep that width in the foot, that we're not rotating out or in through the ankle. We're going to keep that lifting action through the knees, and we're going to move the top of the thighs back. So I'm going to turn to the side. You can stay where you are. So in our culture, this has become our new posture. Even if you look at the mannequins in the mall, the pelvis is always forward. This is supposed to look cool. Well, it's awful for our back. So, and it's not the way we were designed to be. So thighs do not go forward, pelvis does not tip forward, it goes back. So top of the thighs are moving back, and you'll notice the butt comes out a little more, and we get a curve in our low back again, and just feel the relief of that in the low back. So this is where our block comes in. Okay, so we're going to take the block and put it between the thighs and squeeze it. Okay, and that will help give us some feedback that will help us to get this alignment cue where the thighs are moving back. So our heels are under the hips, and our hips are under the shoulders, and our shoulders are under the ears. So just look at this normal posture that we're supposed to think is cool in our culture. Nothing is in alignment. My pelvis is forward of the heels, my shoulders are back, my ears are over here. I'm going to have a lot of muscles trying to hold me up if I'm standing this way. So it feels like you're relaxing and slouching, but in a way you're making your body work really hard. So when we get in better alignment, heels under hips, inner thighs spiraling so that we get some space in the low back and some curve, and shoulders over the hip points and ears over the shoulders, what happens is our bones are holding us up instead of our muscles. And you'll find ultimately that it's much more relaxing. You can get a fuller breath, you feel more confident because the shoulders are wide. If you're noticing that your shoulders are coming forward, let's just real quickly circle the shoulders back and kind of squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other. Bring the fingertips pointing down at your sides. So there's a little action in the arms. They're not just loose, but reaching towards the toes. Our chin is parallel to the floor. This is Tadasana. This is mountain pose. This is our foundation in yoga. So we're going to do this funny little thing where we use the block to get some feedback about inner spiraling the thighs. You're going to hear that a lot in yoga. So see if you can move your legs in such a way that the block comes forward. Okay. Feel what happened. The thighs had to rotate outward, the butt kind of squinched up, and the low back feels a little more locked. Okay? Now, do the opposite. So rotate the thighs in, feel that lift, and that openness now in the low back. So try it again. Block forward, like feel the thighs go forward, feel the angle change, and then block back. Okay? Some people call that the human Pez dispenser. Isn't that funny? So here's our Tadasana, and we're just going to hold this for a moment. In yoga, we say hold the pose, but don't hold the breath. So we're holding the pose and we're gonna sweep the arms up. And the arms are reaching in front of the head. They're not directly over the head, so I can see my thumbs. And then exhale, sweep the arms down. And palms come together at the heart. Inhale, sweep up. And exhale, sweep down. Energetically, you might notice when palms are up, coming up, that feels like drawing more energy in. And then turn the palms so they face down on the exhale and feel how quieting that is. That is very much about yoga, that kind of level of awareness, noticing how our movement and our breath and our focus really changes how we feel in the body and in the mind. Inhale up. And exhale, sweep it down. All right, you can release the block now and set it off to the side. We'll need it later, but we don't need it now. My mat is always getting little bumps and ridges. So we're gonna stay in Tadasana, so feet are still hip width, toes spread, kneecaps lifting, top of thighs back. We're gonna inhale, sweep up, grasp the left wrist with the right index finger and thumb, and then pull so that you're getting a nice stretch through the left side of the ribs. You'll notice I'm turning and looking up. That feels very natural to do. And one of the things that you can't see, but this is an alignment cue, is that I'm stamping my left heel down into the floor. So I'm not bringing all the weight over into the right side of the body. I'm trying to keep the feet both bearing some of the weight. And then sweep it down, hands to the heart. And then sweep it up and grasp the right wrist with the left index and thumb. And pull that arm over the head. Gaze is up into the corner of the room. And we're reaching down through that right heel. And exhale, sweep it down, palms to the heart. In yoga, they call the side of the ribs a gate. So we're opening up the left and right gate. Inhale, sweep up, grasp the left wrist and pull, lean. See if you're staying steady in the breath. Sometimes we try and push our stretching a little further because we think it looks impressive, and what we'll find is we're holding the breath. And sweep it down. And inhale, other side. And come back to that Ujjayi breath. And an adjustment in yoga is like, if this was going too far, this is coming out an inch. If this is going too far, coming out a centimeter. And it really can make a lot of difference, just those micro adjustments. And sweep it down, hands to the heart. All right. We're going to be doing some half sun salutes, and I spell that sun, S-O-N, because this is Christian yoga, and we're keeping our hearts and minds fixed on Jesus. Remember, our foundational thought is this is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. We want to keep coming back to that. So I'm going to turn to the side for my half sun salutes. And we're going to inhale, sweep up. Palms are where we can see them, slightly in front of the head. Exhale, and I'm going to fold with a flat back and bend the knees and bring the belly onto the thighs, and fingertips come to the floor and crown of the head comes down. And then waiting for the inhale, I come up halfway and press into the shins, flat back again, and then exhale, bow, bringing the belly onto the bent legs. And then inhale, sweep up, coming up with bent knees, flat back, and then exhale, thumbs to the heart. At any point when you want to, sighing is a really nice way to release stress. So we'll do a couple more of those. So inhale, sweep up. And exhale, bow. Those bent knees help if you have especially tight hamstrings. Inhale, come up halfway, pressing into the shins. And when I press in, then my legs are straight. And exhale, bow, bending the knees any amount. And inhale, knees stay bent and coming up. Palms together at the heart. So as we repeat this, you'll feel like the mind really slows down. When people say yoga is relaxing, that's probably what they meant, because stretching your muscles out can be a stressor. But the breathing and going slowly and having a pace about things really does slow down the mind. So inhale, sweep up. Exhale, bow. It's like a slow swan dive into a swimming pool. I like to close my eyes once my head is all the way down. Wait for the inhale to move you. Come up halfway. Exhale, bow. Bending the knees again. And inhale. Sweep it up. Palms together at the heart. All right. I'd like us to step out a little wider, so that then it's nice to go to the edges of your mat, because then you can see the edges of your feet are parallel. And we're going to come into Uttanasana. So that's a forward fold. And put any amount of bend you need in to keep the low back straighter, okay? So if we have tight hamstrings and the legs are straight, what will happen is we'll get rounded in the back. So if you bend the knees a little bit, then the back can be straighter and we won't be putting any strain. I'm going to put the palms on each elbow and grasp a hold, and then start to swing and sway. And now you should be feeling the back of the thighs a little bit, feeling the hamstrings start to open. Listen for that breath. Is it still steady and smooth? So one of the things that you will notice in yoga is how ambitious we are, how we want to be able to do things better, stronger, faster than we really are capable of doing, and how much we push the body to deliver what our ambition wants. And so yoga helps us slow down to notice what the mind is doing to the body and how we hurt the body in that, and to notice what the body is saying to us. You know, it's saying, this is tight. It needs a little more time to open. It's saying, I don't like that. That hurts. So we're trying to get a better relationship with our body, that we're not just using it to make it do what we want it to do, but we're learning how to attend to it, build a better partnership. And release the elbows, let the head hang. And then bending the knees any amount to come up with a flat back again. So you're going to need your block for this next pose. So beginners begin with standing poses. So we're going to do a few standing poses so you can get used to those. And we'll need the block for that. I'm going to put my block in this upper left-hand corner. And I'd like for when you start doing these standing poses that you keep it at its highest height, okay? So we want to have a lot of support, and that will help. So we're going to come to the center of our mat. You can bring your feet a little closer in this time. We're going to bring the palms up in front of the heart, palms down, fingertips near each other. And we're going to bend the knees and hop out. Okay, we're trying to hop out about 4 feet, 4.5 feet. And the toes are right now pointing forward in the same plane as the body. But we are going to turn. So I'm going to turn my left foot so that it's like what 12 o'clock would be on the clock. And I'm not just turning the foot, I'm turning from that hip joint. So I'll feel an outer spiral with that front thigh. Now I'm going to look where that front heel is landing when it's at that 12 o'clock and trace an imaginary line to this back foot. And I want that front heel and the mid-arch of this back foot to be in alignment, or heel alignment. And this back foot, I either want to be at what would be 3 o'clock or 2:30. Okay, we don't want the foot angling backwards. We want it either angling in or being perpendicular to that front. Okay, now we'll start with our foundation. So we want to be pressing into the big toe ball mound of the front foot, pressing into the outer edge of the back foot, and then check the knee. So I really can do this so you can get a really good example. This is a hyperextended knee joint. See how uncomfortable that looks? When the knee is kind of collapsing into the leg and you're kind of jamming that knee backwards. We don't want to do that. We want more of a straight line. And for me to get a straight line with the leg means I have to put a micro bend in my knee. So maybe 1 centimeter, maybe 2 centimeters. But so I'm going to be aware of my knee. I don't want to jam it. That's not healthy for the knee. I'm going to put a micro bend in it to make it straight. Isn't that funny that you have to make a knee bend to make it straight? And then keep that attention. Is that front thigh outer rotating? Is the back thigh rotating in? And then I'm going to bring this block to the outer edge of that front left foot. Float the arms up, shoulder height, and then I'm going to kick this right hip backwards, okay? So as that hip goes backwards, I start to reach that left arm forward. And when I can't go any further forward, the hand comes down to the block. Then we're going to reach the right arm up in such a way that the heel of that top hand is in line with the heart. Okay, so first we get the shape. This is called Trikonasana, and it means triangle pose. First we get the shape, then we go through those points of alignment. So pressing down through the big toe of the front foot, pressing down the outer edge of the back foot. Notice if your breath is steady. Notice if the arm is way back here and you can't even see it. And bring it so the heel of the hand is in line with the heart. See if the chest is reaching up towards that hand. And if you're starting to feel a strain in the neck, you can come to a more neutral neck or even look down. But find a place for the eyes to fix their gaze. So you can be looking up at the thumb or down at the big toe. Okay, so we've got our shape, then our points of alignment, and then we steady our mind with the theme of the class for the day. So our theme was, this is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. We just rest in that for a moment. And then just like God is grabbing your hand and hoisting you up, grab the block too, and we'll come back up. So we'll turn the feet, and this is the funny thing you might notice. When you turn the feet, they are now might be out of alignment. So we'll adjust so that the right foot now is pointing in that 12 o'clock direction. Check that front heel and see, is it mid-arch or heel to heel alignment? No, there we go. And we don't want to sink into that knee either, so no hyperextending. Put a micro bend in it, rotating that front thigh out, rotating the back thigh in. Then the arms float up, shoulder height. Kick the hip back, back, back. As you reach forward, forward, forward. Hand comes down to the block that's on the outer edge of that foot, and then the other arm floats up. So here's the shape of Trikonasana, and then go through those points of alignment, which will help you go deeper into the pose so that you get its benefits, but also bring the mind into the present moment. So check the foundation of the feet. Big toe ball mound rooting down. Outer edge of the back foot. Check the knees. Are they hyperextending? Check the thighs. Are they rotating out on that front leg? Rotating in on the back? Is the heart and the chest turning upward? Is the heel of the hand in line with the heart? Is the breath steady? Do you feel any part of the body like building up tension? Like it's saying, I don't like this. And can you soften there and be attentive? Like my back knee is straining a little bit, so I'm putting just a little more bend in that knee to see if that helps. If you've got a strain in the neck, ease down. Now that we have our alignment, we come to our theme. Jesus saying, this is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And then just like God is pulling our hand, woo, we come up. So your first Trikonasana, triangle pose. All right, I'm gonna put the block off to the side, point both toes forward, and hop it in. Isn't that fun? I like that. All right, well, we're in that center of the mat. We can just pause. You can even close the eyes. It's a little bit of a balance challenge. We get a lot of our feedback about where we are in space also from our eyes, not just from the inside. You can just pause here for a moment in Tadasana and feel the effects of all the yoga we've just done. The balance and aliveness in the legs, the fullness in the breath, the presence of mind. And we'll move on to our next pose. So yoga is a lot about self-awareness, observation, noting what you're experiencing without judging. That's the big deal, that we're bringing in all that data, but we're not using it to criticize ourselves. So we're going to do what's called Virabhadrasana 2. Virabhadrasana was a warrior, so it's a warrior 2 pose. We're gonna, we can do that hop out if you like that. So arms out, elbows out, and palms down, bend the knees and hop. And it's a little wider than our stance for Trikonasana. You can bring it so that the wrists and the ankles are the same distance apart. For beginners, that might feel like it's a little far, and if so, you can walk it in, have a little higher Virabhadrasana 2 for today. But we're going to turn the left foot out, but this time bend the knee, and still it's that heel or heel mid-arch alignment. But we're going to be looking down. We can drop the hands to the hips for a second because we're going to need to adjust our foundation here. So we don't want the knee to collapse in. We want the knee to be moving towards the pinky side of the foot, and you should be able to see a few toes. So check, we're gonna bend into that knee, and we don't want it to go any further than over the ankle, okay? So the deepest you go in is a 90-degree angle, and that can be quite a challenge. So for me to get down to a 90-degree angle, it's really nice for the knee. The knee likes to be at 90 degrees, but it's a really big stretch. So you might want to be a little over 90 degrees. So this is more maybe 120. But still, the knee is not going past the ankle, and I can see the toes. So with the hands on the hips, you can see if the hips are level. Are you kind of leaning to the front or leaning to the back? Try and see if you can make the pelvis more square so that the torso is evenly distributed between the 2 feet. And then we're going to check our foundation. If there was a scale under each of your feet, would there be an equal weight coming from each foot? So we'll just try and get the weight evenly distributed. Then we're going to raise the arms shoulder height, and sometimes the shoulders want to rise up to the ears, and we can actually fix that by imagining. So flip the palms and imagine you're holding 2 heavy fruits, like 2 pineapples or 2 cantaloupes or watermelons, and the weight in your hands encourages the shoulders to go down. So the shoulder blades are sliding down the back and coming more towards each other. Then flip the palms again, and this pose, actually we're turning and looking out over that middle finger. We're trying to make both arms at an even height, even shoulder height. So one isn't higher than the other. And one of the tendencies in this pose, probably because it's a tendency in our culture, is to rush off into the future, so we're a little bit forward. And to adjust that, pretend someone's pulling your back hand to keep you evenly supported in the present moment. So we've got our shape and our points of alignment, and now we come to our focus. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. Thank you, Jesus. And you can release the arms, turn the feet, and we'll go in the other direction. So now the left knee is bent. See if you can naturally see a couple of toes. You won't be able to see it if your knee is falling in. Move that knee to the outer side of the foot. And then check your back foot. See, are you heel or heel mid-arch alignment? Is that foot perpendicular? It would be like 9 o'clock, or is it at 9:30? But we're not going to go to 8:30. That would not be good. All right, and then we'll float the arms up. That same kind of outer spiral with front thigh, inner spiral of back thigh is at work here. I forgot. We should put our hands on our hips and check. Is that right hip lower than the left hip? Are they pretty even? Then float our arms up shoulder height. Do that little flip the palm trick to bring the shoulder blades down the back. And then flip the palms down and feel like someone's pulling your back hand so that the torso is straight over the hips. We're poised in the present moment, gazing over that front middle finger. Notice if the breath is catching. If you're holding your breath, go back to that ujjayi, smooth and steady breathing. And then we come to our theme. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And release. And turn the feet so they're both facing forward and happening. And we'll just pause again. Feel the effects in the body. I'm feeling like this buzzy, energized feeling, because that was a big stretch in big muscles. Feeling more alive. My mood is even lifting. Sometimes when we're in a yoga posture, we're like, oh my gosh, why do I do yoga? This is so hard. But when you come out of it, if you pause and feel the after effects, you're like, oh yeah, that's why we do yoga. That feels really good. All right, our next pose is Vrikshasana, which means tree pose. You may have seen this before. And it emphasizes balance, okay? And we're gonna show it at 3 levels. So if you don't have amazing balance, maybe you've had a neck injury or an ankle injury, our body gets most of its balance information from those 2 locations
and from our inner ear. So if you ever had an ankle injury or a neck injury, you might notice it's really hard for you to balance, like if your eyes are closed or if you have a cold or something. So it can be a big deal. But the lovely thing about balance poses is they really bring us into the present moment. You can't balance and be thinking about your grocery list or what that person said yesterday that bothered you. So we are going to do Vrikshasana to work on our balance. So we're going to bring the weight over into the left foot and then just turn the right foot out so that the heel is resting above the ankle and we're on the ball of the right foot, and the hands can be at the heart. And I want you to find what's called a drishti. So a drishti is a focal point that we're going to gaze upon that will help us to stay balanced. So I'm looking at the cord for our camera here. You might notice that it feels good to pick a little spot on the wall that's a little lower than the horizon line of your natural gaze point. Like dropping that point down a little bit can feel really nice. Okay, so we're going to notice the pelvis again, just like we did in Virabhadrasana 2. Is the pelvis level? Is it tipped forward? Is it square to the front? Okay, we don't want to be turning one hip back, but keep it square to the front, tilted so that there's that arch in the low back, and level. Right. So this could be your tree pose. If you're finding that you are wobbling here, just stay here. Those little wobbles are you building up some muscular strength for that balance later. Or you can bring the sole of the foot maybe up a little higher on the leg. Never on the knee, but up a little higher on the leg. The ultimate expression of this pose is sole of the foot into the inner thigh. And you might want a wall either to hold onto or to actually come up against for that full expression. So if you want to take a second to either come over so that you can have a hand on the wall or be up against a wall, that's fine. So depending on the yoga pants that I wear, this is accessible or not accessible. So we're just going to get the shape first. I'm going to reach down and hold that foot. The foot's pointing straight down. And I'm pressing my heel into the thigh and the thigh into the heel. Now, I'm feeling it. My foot's gonna slide if I let go. Even if I press harder, just because of the fabric of these yoga pants. So I'll just pretend that I could let go and that this hand can be they call it Anjali Mudra when you put the two palms together. So I have my drishti, my gaze point for my eyes. Check again with my alignment. How are my toes on my left foot doing? How's the pelvis doing? Is it level, square to the front and tilted forward? And then come to that theme that fixes the mind. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And then to come out, we bring the knee forward, foot forward, and feet down. And this is a nice time to pause. Like, feel the heat in that left foot. Oh my, it's working so hard. Feel the aliveness of that left leg and feel how present the mind is because we were balancing. So I'm going to come back to my mat again so we can start with the right side. So yoga is good for all three of these aspects. It's good for strength, it's good for balance, and it's good for flexibility. We tend to be good at two of those, 2 out of the 3. So people who are strong tend not to be flexible, like the big bulked up guy who can't touch his toes, right? People who are flexible tend not to be strong, and both of them can be not balanced. So we're trying to work on all three aspects. We want to be strong, we want to be able to be balanced, and we want to be flexible. So we're going to work a little more on our balance. So bring all the weight over into the right foot, and then turn the left knee out, and the left heel is up on the, just above the ankle. Hands together at the heart in Anjali Mudra, and find that drishti, that gaze point. Nice steady breath. And then check in with that alignment. How's the pelvis doing? Level, square to the front, tilted so that there's an arch in the low back. Slight smile at the corners of your mouth. And if you have some balance, bring the foot up a little higher on the leg, never on the knee. Woo! Foot really wobbling on this side. You might really notice a difference in both sides of the body. Remember, we're going to observe without judging. Just noticing. Getting back in relationship with this body. And then let's come over to the wall and see, just for a touch or to kind of back up into it. So see if we can get this left heel up closer to the top of the right leg. I'm kind of using my fingertips here for balance. Then I can root down into that right foot, checking the pelvis. Level, square, tilted, and then hands to heart, gaze point, and then come to our theme for the day. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And then knee forward, foot out, foot down. They actually make yoga pants that have like a plastic patch here so that your heel will stick, kind of like our sticky mat. It's kind of funny. And we've made it to the second side of our lesson plan. And we'll continue on, but we're going to come down onto hands and knees now. So hands can be under shoulders, knees are under hips, or hands can be a little forward of shoulders, especially if you have any wrist issues. The fingertips are spread super wide, index fingers facing forward, and wrist creases, it kind of makes a little line when your hand and wrist bend like this, should be parallel to the front of the mat. We're going to do what's called cat-cows. So we're going to inhale, lift the tailbone, drop the belly, lift the heart, lift the gaze, and then exhale, curl the tailbone down, arch through the back, lifting through the upper back so the shoulder blades go wide, and then head comes down. Then inhale, reach back through the tailbone again, and wait for the breath. So as the exhale naturally comes, the body naturally arches. Inhale, inflates and expands, and exhale, round. Inhale, and exhale. And then we'll come to a more neutral spine, so more like a table. And I'm going to turn so that my hips swing to the right and my gaze turns like I was trying to look back at that hip. This is called wagging the dog. So we'll just whoop. It's like we just wagged our tail when we're trying to see it. Get some nice mobility in the low back. All right, and then we're going to do a very famous yoga pose called downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So for that, if your hands were under the shoulders, then put them about one handprint forward,
The heels of the hand are as wide as the shoulders. Index fingers are pointing straight ahead. Squeeze into the index finger and thumb side of the hand. It's an isometric movement, so nothing's moving, but it feels like you're squeezing the index finger and thumb towards each other. Press down through the tips of the fingers and the base of the knuckles, and the weight is going to go into the index and thumb side of the hand. We're going to tuck the toes, lift the hips, keeping the knees bent, and reaching up through the sit bones so we get some nice length in the back. Okay, so this is the shape of Adho Mukha Svanasana. And now we're going to adjust our points of alignment. So, am I pressing into the base of the thumb and the base of the index finger? Outer edges of the upper arms rotate down. Our shoulder blades on the back. Can the head emerge out from between the arms just a little bit as the shoulder blades get more solid on the back? Then as the knees are bending, can I reach the sit bones up even higher? And then begin to straighten the knees any amount. Don't want to hyperextend there. And then bring the heels down towards the floor. And if your heels don't reach the floor, that's probably a bone issue, not a flexibility issue. So depending on your bones, you may or may not ever be able to get your heels to the floor, but your heels can reach towards the floor, and that's still a lovely down dog. Notice is the breath steady? And we're going to, now that we've got our shape and our alignment, come to that beautiful thought of Jesus, to Sister Mary, the Holy Trinity. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. And then we're going to drop down onto the knees and bring the knees so that they're as wide as the mat, and bring the big toes together, and then bring the sit bones back. Now, some people who are lacking some flexibility in that ankle feel really good putting those rolled socks just at that crease where the leg and the foot come together. So you can put that right there and it might feel really nice. And we have the knees wide to make room for the belly to come between them and really be able to breathe. This is called child's pose, and it's a lovely pose for calming down. We're going to try and bring our forehead to the floor, see if that's going to work. So the forehead can go to the floor and the arms can extend. If you find you can't breathe when you do that, you can lift the forehead up by stacking the palms and bringing the forehead onto the palms. If that's still not enough, you can stack the fists. But we're trying to put a little bit of pressure between the eyebrows. You can close the eyes. And then kind of pull the skin down towards the eyebrows to help calm the mind. That little bit of pressure on the forehead really does calm the mind. One of the advantages of Balasana is that we really get to breathe into the back side of the lungs. So inhale and really feel the back rising up. Ujjayi breath. Feeling that wave-like motion, but this time we're following it into the back of the lungs. And as we breathe into the back, we're turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. Coming out of fight, flight, freeze, coming out of panic. And when we're in the parasympathetic nervous system, we can't be in the sympathetic nervous system. We just can't be in both at the same time. We can't relax and be in fight or flight. So this is a lovely way to turn off fight or flight. If you're dealing with trauma, this is a nice way to get really grounded and really calm down. This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you. Thank you, Jesus. And rise up.
Remove the sakis. I think we're coming up on an hour here, so I had more for you. I often plan too much. So we will have to revisit some of this later. At the end of our yoga class, we do a cool down, and these are 3 postures that are good for, you know what, I'm going to move my mat, that are good for releasing the low back. So if ever your low back is complaining, this is a nice little series to do. Just come up, grab a mat, get on the floor wherever you are, and do these 3. So we'll come onto the back and we'll hug the knees and then start to rock from side to side. Just a little back release sequence. And then bring the hands to the heads of the knees and start to circle. So there's a big bony plate at the bottom of the spine called the sacrum. We talk about it a lot in yoga, but you can feel as we circle the knees, we're circling all around that sacrum. And other direction. And then widen the knees, the toes are towards each other, and we'll start to circle the knees apart and together. I don't know what to call this, so it looks to me like frog swimming. Maybe we'll call it that. And circle the knees in the other direction. Ooh, got a nice hip opening there. All right, now we're going to bring the soles of the feet to the floor. The knees are bent. And I'm going to bring my right ankle across the top of my left thigh and really flex that foot. Can you see how flexed that foot is? When the knee is in this position, it's a little compromised, and the flexed foot will help stabilize the knee. Okay. So I'm pulling the big toe ball mound toward my face and pushing the heel away, just energetically, to keep the foot straight and stable and flexed. Now this is a hip opener right here, as is. You can take the right hand and push into that right thigh. And if that feels good and you'd like a little more, you can interlace the hands behind the left thigh and draw it in. Now you might feel a little more stretch in that outer right hip. And if you'd like to rock a little from side to side, that can be a nice way to open that hip some more. You can even use that right elbow into the right inner thigh to push that leg back a little bit to get a little more sensation in that outer right hip. But notice what happens with the breath. If the breath is staying steady and smooth, then it's fine. But if you start holding your breath, you went too far. And you can always let the knee fall a little closer to midline if you want a little less. And unwind all that. And bring the left sole of the foot across the top of the right thigh, flexing the foot, pulling the big toe ball mound towards your face, and this edge of the heel back. Got something on my foot. And then you can press that left thigh away. Get some opening there. And depending on the 2 sides of your body, you might notice a real difference in each of the hips. One hip might be a lot more tight than the other. You can interlace the fingers behind the thigh and draw it in, just staying like that in that sort of figure 4 shape. Or rock a little.
Rocking the sacrum is very soothing to the nervous system. It's a nice way to take care of ourselves. Maybe pressing the left elbow into the left inner thigh. Get a little more opening, as long as we can stay steady in the breath. And release. We're going to bring the arms out shoulder height, palms up, and the heels are in line with the hips and the knees are in line with all that, so it's like little train tracks here. And then we're going to press in the feet and lift the hips up. Swing them a couple of inches off to the right and come back down on the left hip. And draw in the knees and let them fall to the left while the gaze goes to the right. So this is a twist. And that little adjustment with the hips helps us keep the spine more straight. So the spine from the crown of the head to the sacrum should be like on a straight axis, but the knees are in one direction and gaze is in another. Get a little twist here. And then center the head. Look up at the ceiling first. Lift the top knee and then the bottom so that we don't strain the back. And we'll come back till we're straight. Press into the feet, lift the hips up off the floor, and swing them a couple of inches off to the left this time. Come back down on the right hip, draw in the knees and let them fall to the right, and gaze is over the left arm. Now believe it or not, keeping the left shoulder down is more important than getting the knees down. So if you notice that left shoulder popping up, then lift the knees up a little bit, because that's a higher priority. And then breathe into this shape, relax, and then center the head, lift the top knee and then the bottom. We always conclude every yoga class with what's called Shavasana. It means corpse pose. Don't pop up like that. I'm just getting my iPad so we can listen to our song. Okay, so corpse pose is our final relaxation pose. And this is the expression of corpse pose. Heels are as wide as your yoga mat. Arms are out 45 degrees from the body. Palms are up, fingers naturally curled. Chin tucked towards the chest. So that the forehead is a little higher than the chin. Eyes closed. Tongue behind the top front teeth. And just pause there and see, how does the low back feel? If the low back is objecting, then we want to listen to the low back and do what feels better. And we'll come back into that constructive rest position. So feet as wide as the mat and knees coming together. There should be an arch in the low back, an arch behind the neck. And we just rest and integrate the movement we've done. I usually have a piece of music here because often people notice when they're in silence that they have a hard time with their thoughts. So I'm giving your mind something to focus on.
Deepen the breath. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. Begin to rock the head from side to side, making small movements. Shavasana is actually a 7 to 10 minutes or even longer posture. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes for the mind to let go. We just did about 4 minutes. So if you ever want to feel the full effects of Shavasana, come up, lay down, close your eyes, and wait that long, and you'll see like an elevator drop in the mind, like in stillness and quiet in the interest of time. So we're going to stretch out the legs and bring them together, pointing the toes. Bring the arms up overhead till the thumbs touch on the floor behind you. This is just called long stretch. I like to hook my thumbs here. The palms are up. And reach through the right fingertips and the right toes and kind of squinch in the left side of the body. Then reach the left fingertips and left toes away from each other, squinching in the right side of the body. I call these our fishy wiggles. Do a few more of those. They feel so good. And then we're going to keep the arms right where they are and bend the knees and draw them into the chest and roll to the right side so that that bottom arm then becomes a pillow. And we're just going to rest in the fetal position for a breath or two. Eyes can still be closed. And then use the hands to press on the floor and come up into a comfortable seated position. You can come cross-legged or whatever feels good in your body. We're going to inhale the arms up. Palms come together in front of the heart. Jesus, thank you that you are the foundation of our lives. Thank you for your words to Sister Mary of the Holy Trinity when you said, "This is the only reality. I love you and I take care of you, and that is for now and for eternity. Everything else must be borne with meekness and patience. They are only fleeting shadows which pass around you, but I remain. I love you and I take care of you." And Jesus, we thank you for that reality, and thank you that you are teaching us and growing us and helping us to trust you more every day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your first yoga class with me, and I will see you at Bible study.